Greetings and welcome back to another episode of Digital Dating with Anonymous Andrew. And today I have a guest. My guest today is Keri Green. Welcome, Kerry, to the show.
Thank you.
And now comes the favorite part because I get to tell everybody what Keri does, and this is my favorite subject. Keri is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she's a member of the American Association of Sexual Educators, Counselors, and Therapists. And in one line, I'll say, or one word or one phrase, she's a sex therapist, basically. Right, Keri?
It's true.
And that's my favorite topic. So,
Love it. Love
but
it. Let's talk about sex.
but in a serious way, it is a real problem in especially in today's world. But it's always been a problem, but people are now coming forward as when I grew up, if you had a sex problem, you did not go to somebody and talk to them about it. It was something like, hush, hush. You might have confided in friends or maybe family, but whatever. But today, people are more open or apt, and therapists like so you do teletherapy, right? So you can,
Mhm.
so people are more open to come online and talk about stuff. So tell us about your practice and how you got into it.
Yeah, thank you. So I've been a licensed marriage and family therapist for over 20 years. I've worked with kids, families, teens, couples, adults, lots of different populations. I've always found the most humbling work in working with adults and couples around sex and intimacy. So, really, in the last 5 or so years, I kind of rethought the rest of my career and decided I only want to focus on sex therapy. So, I joined and became a member and got the certification through ASECT, like you mentioned, as a now licensed clinical sex therapist. And the only clients I work with now are adults, both individuals and couples seeking sex therapy. And there's so much under the sex therapy umbrella that most people don't think about.
Can you give me an example of what might be a typical? I know I'm putting you on the spot there because it probably isn't one, but if you're doing couples and individuals and males and all
Yep.
genders, I would imagine. I got to say, even today, you got to be careful. I can't just say male and female. It's all genders because there's a lot of different genders now. So, tell us what's something that is. What are you finding people are coming to ask for help for?
Yeah, so a lot of different adults and couples seek sex therapy for different reasons, but I would say that the most common reason is low desire or mismatched desire. So if it's a couple, typically it's mismatched. One partner has a higher libido, higher sex drive, more desire for sex, more willingness to talk about sex, want to have sex than the other partner. So that's what would be called mismatched desire. For clients that I'm working with individually, they may be in a relationship. They're just seeking therapy individually. Their partner's not a part of the therapy session. And it could still be mismatched desire. But for a lot of them, it's questioning where they're at with their own desire, um, typically being different than their partners. And in that case, it could be higher or lower. So there are lots of different reasons people seek sex therapy. There is also different forms of sexual dysfunction, both for male and female. There is infidelity, trauma, um, different events that took place in childhood that they still have questions around because of shame or embarrassment based on culture or where they grew up or what they were taught to define and be comfortable or not comfortable when it comes to sex. So, lots of different things that people are feeling more comfortable today. I agree with you than probably years ago. And seeking a sex therapist, someone that they could speak to that is educated and open and supportive in whatever they would like to talk about.
Well, and just as you're talking, I'm just, of course, thousands of questions going through my head. Uh, when I was growing up, just to give you an example, condoms were not out for display. When you walked into a pharmacy, they were behind the counter or not even in plain sight. You had to ask for them. I remember in high school when you needed a condom for going out for the date that night or something, it was
Yeah.
like, and then you would walk in and you'd buy a pack of gum and for this is the guys. We start
Yeah, yeah,
stacking
yeah.
things up on the counter, and oh, can I have one?
By the way,
And
yeah.
yeah, today, there you walk in and there's an entire, like I was at Walgreens the other day. There's an entire like sexual pleasure section now, right out in the open. Lubricant and little rubber vibrating toys that you can buy now.
Say you said Walgreens, but I was about to say now here we are in 2025 and you can go to Target, same thing with Walgreens, and there are vibrators. There are
Okay,
sex toys.
there you go. So
Now,
we
they are higher up on the shelf, so a 5-year-old isn't going to see them. And there might be some listeners who have mixed feelings about sex toys being sold at a store like that. Yet at the same time, I appreciate that we are normalizing sex a lot more than we used
agreed.
to.
Agreed, 100%. Yeah, I could see how a parent, traditional, conventional parent, might say that's not appropriate for my child. But if they are hidden, not hidden, higher up, and or, I went to get some Flonase the other day because I'm having some sinus problems, and they're locked up. So they get that plastic thing down when you have to call somebody over with the keys. So lock up the vibrators. That's all. You put them up a little higher, and I have no problem with that. And honestly, I wonder how many actually get sold at Target because you're going to get a much better, bigger, and selection online. Like, and they're not a sponsor of mine, but like AdamandEve.com is one of my ones I just happen to
No
know.
pun intended, but more bang for your buck. Yes, Target is not the go-to for sex toys. And so I work with a lot of individuals and couples where I'll give homework at the end of a therapy session and say, okay, between now and when I see you next week in 2 weeks, why don't you X, Y, or Z? And I've encouraged a lot to go to sex shops and just familiarize themselves with what it's like. For a lot that are like, oh no, that's too much, then I say, then go online to Adam and Eve, or I have a lot of different, recommendations. We familiarize ourselves. If we're going to be going on a vacation next summer to a place we've never been, we're going to do the research. We're going to look at pictures. We're going to familiarize ourselves with it. Why are we not doing the same with sex? And so a big part of why I wanted to become a sex therapist specifically for the remainder of my career is to not just normalize it, but also to let people know, regardless of what they're into, not into, what their sex life has or hasn't been, all of it is normal. And I want people to embrace their sexuality if they want to. I want them to be just as okay with not being sexual if they don't want to. One of the best sayings I've ever heard by Dr. Emily Nagoski is don't yuck someone else's yum, meaning someone else may be into something that you're not into.
Right.
Let them be into
Yeah.
it. Again, we don't turn our nose up at somebody if they order a certain thing at the restaurant that we have no desire to order. So why should we be shaming people and embarrassing people when it comes to sex, which is another big reason most people have not felt comfortable talking about it.
Have you ever listened to Dan Savage podcast?
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a little bit out there, and he's more for the gay community, but actually that's not entirely true. He's mainstream, but he's gay himself. But what a great podcast because he normalizes it, and he does
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about. He goes now. He's got a new Friday podcast where it's called After Action Report, where somebody who hasn't tried something but they've always wanted to try something in the sexual realm tried it, and now they come on and he interviews them. How was your first flogging? Some guy got flogged last Friday for the first time in his life. And so, yeah, so BDSM and S&M and some people are just they're either they know about it but they're afraid. So let me just talk about that for a second. Do you have couples coming to you with that, or is it vanilla
And
with you?
I've seen a little bit of everything. And you started to allude to this a little bit earlier when you were saying that I do telehealth, which is true. I only see clients right now through telehealth. I did used to have an office, and then COVID changed many things, including the flexibility of telehealth. So most of my clients prefer telehealth, even if I offered a physical space. I don't think they would want to. And I do think there's something to be said about a little bit more, I want to say protection isn't the right word, but a little bit more allowance to be more vulnerable, knowing there is this computer screen between us rather than 5 feet of physical in person distance. So I've absolutely had a lot of clients and couples ask about different forms of um, sex, different kinks, different fetishes, different ways to make their relationship, more adventurous. Um, and so BDSM is definitely talked about in some cases with various couples. And again, as long as it's not something that I have to break confidentiality and report on as a safety concern, as something that is illegal, I welcome anything anyone wants to share with me because that's why they're seeing me in the first place.
Okay, and I was going to ask you a follow-up question, but I don't know that we need to go there. I was going to see what the boundaries were for you and what would you would have to report, but I don't know if that's
Me to answer
necessary.
it very quickly, unless it is anything to do with a child or an animal, because
Which
that is
is
illegal and they are
right.
not providing consent. You could come to me and tell me that you had, a gangbang last night. You could tell me that you went to a sex party and whatever. I mean,
Right.
there's a million
Yeah, yeah,
examples.
there's a
All of
million
those things are
examples.
fine.
Yep.
As long as it was consensual and it's two adults or more, go for it.
I have always from my childhood said that whatever goes on behind closed doors between two consenting adults is not my business. And while I may not agree or find it moral or something or my to my liking, but if it's as long as they're adults and they're
Yeah,
consensual, it's
let
not my
them do their
business.
thing.
Yeah, not my business.
Exactly.
And what's my business is my business, and I go find that where I go. So I did have a question. So you said one of the most of your clients that come in with the problems is the lack of desire. Was you see a lot of that.
Mhm.
Now I'm going to break that down a little bit more. And again, it may not be fair because you don't have any books in front of you, but just off the top of your head, is it more males lack of desire and maybe ED, or more of the females are hitting menopause, or what do you find more of which gender in
In
a
my
traditional
clinical
relationship?
Yes, in my clinical experience of the clients that come and see me, there are more women who would say there is less desire than men. And reasons for that are across the spectrum. Hormones is a huge part. So if it's a woman in her mid to late 40s, early 50s, and there is pre-menopause, perimenopause, things, sure, that could be a factor. Sometimes it's being in a relationship for a long period of time and they've lost the desire because sex has been the same for 15, 20 years, or they're not feeling as loved and supported by their partner. So at the end of the day, they're not interested in being, close with them sexually. So there are a lot of different reasons anyone would have less desire. What I always ask is, when did this start? What do you want to have higher desire? If it was possibly a different partner, not that I'm trying to talk them into leaving their partner, but there's a big difference between, is it your partner or you would feel this way no matter whom you
I
were
was
with?
just going to ask you that. I wonder if you put somebody else in front of them, or if there's is. I have seen this over in my personal life, but I've also seen it elsewhere. Is the the could be the man. I'll just give an example. The man has put on weight. The man has let himself go. You get the dad bod. Although I hear the dad bod is coming back. It's like women are going for the dad bod. Um, but people who marry at 25 and they look great are not going to look that at 45. And
No.
no, and when I got married in my first marriage and only marriage, there was a vow I took, and it didn't matter what how sick you were or what you turned out to be, but if you put on 200 pounds, I'm supposed to love you in 20 years. So I'm curious as if is that a part of it? Maybe some of the on both sides, the women too.
Absolutely. I mean, we don't want to admit to that, but we absolutely, physical attraction plays a huge role. Not only when you first meet someone, but throughout the relationship as well. And like you just said, it's pretty close to impossible to consider that you're going to look the same at 45 as you do at 25, regardless of all the things you can do with, you know, plastic surgery and whatnot. So, what's going to allow a couple success and staying together for the long run and be happy? I always joke there's a difference between couples who stay together and those who stay together and are genuinely happy and have what they would each define as a healthy sex life. So each time you add one more layer, you're decreasing the actual percentage of people that fall into that. Plenty of people are still together 15, 20 years later. They're not happy. And granted, I'm a couples therapist. So I'm having the couples come to me who typically aren't as happy. But then even those that are together for 15, 20 plus years, are they having sex? I don't know. You know, but yes, it's growing and changing with your partner and supporting them through those different things. If the guy balds or the woman doesn't lose the baby weight or whatever the case is, it's loving each other through that, which is why with a lot of the dating, we are initially swiping right on the physical features of the person. We're not really getting to know them. And I understand how much can you get to know someone on a dating app, their profile, but those looks are most likely going to change. It's who they are as a person that we've really got to take a closer look at, which most people don't do in their 20s, but they look at it differently, I think, if they're back dating in their 40s and 50s.
Um, I might circle back to that because in my later life, I did come across, before we started recording, I told you I came across a woman in her 50s who was just immaculate, 10 out of 10. And that was just like a one find that I will never find again. But back to before, if I'm wondering, because this topic comes up a lot in my discussions, and I'm also finding it on Reddit. I'm a big Reddit surfer. I just like to see what's going on in
Yeah.
the sex world and the relationship dating, and there are I'm going to say young men, but I think it's going to hit the 30s, 40s, and 50s if it hasn't already. There are men in 22, 25, 26, 27 who women will come on Reddit and say, "My boyfriend cannot get hard and cannot have intercourse with me." And my first response is, and a lot of people jump in, is check if he's watching porn because porn is going to kill that. He needs porn to get that erection. Are you finding so? And I think that's where I'm going. So men in their 40s or maybe 50, when the wife pulls away, is he turning to porn?
I mean, the answer can be yes, but he could also be turning to porn when the wife is not turning away. When they have a very active, happy sex life, a partner could still be actively watching porn. People watch porn for lots of different reasons. So I'll go back to that in a minute. But an interesting statistic is 20% of men in their 20s have sexual dysfunction, 30% of men in their 30s. You get the
I
point.
think that's kind of a low number too.
Well, and it's becoming exactly. And so I think the number's probably higher. Most people think, especially back in the day when Viagra became a thing, as a man, you shouldn't, which I don't like the should and shouldn'ts, but we all do it. You shouldn't even need some form of
Enhancement.
sexual, a pill, at least until you're in your 50s, 60s, and 70s. That's the only reason you should, because at that point you're old. We get it. So if a man goes to the doctor in his 20s and asks for Viagra, whoa, 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 something must be going on. Oh, there could be medical reasons, but more likely than not, it's mental. And
Hmm.
so a lot of men, and I could argue the same thing with women who have a hard time achieving orgasm, a lot of men do put a lot of pressure on themselves to perform and they want to be great at what they're doing. That's just an ego thing for men in general. And porn, possibly, depending on the situation, doesn't help. If that particular man is watching a lot of porn, whether he's single or not, and what he is attracted to in porn, what he fantasizes about in porn is not very
He
realistic in
he's
the woman
bringing that into the
dating or
bedroom.
it's hard to even those out. Last night, I watched this thing on porn, and here I am 24 hours later with a human body in front of me. What do I do? Your mind gets overwhelmed and put pressure on yourself. Your body's not going to be able to perform.
And 100% agreed. And or he's thinking that the woman is going to react the way that he saw the woman last night, that she's going to drop to her knees and start giving him
Same.
oral sex, or that she's going to submit to him in some way, and it doesn't work that way. Well, it shouldn't work that way, and so I'm
I've always talked about this in therapy over the years, even when I was working with children. The word I use almost every therapy session, if not every therapy session, every other therapy session, is expectations.
right. Yeah.
We need to have realistic expectations in all aspects of our life. If we have unrealistic expectations, which I differentiate between high expectations, we are setting ourselves up for failure in a sense. If that man in this pretend scenario goes on his date thinking, oh my gosh, this sex I'm going to have tonight, he's already making an assumption he's going to
Hmm.
get laid, is going to be 90% similar to what I just watched, chances are it's not. And so he's already disappointing himself. So within 30 seconds of that sexual encounter, if there's even going to be a sexual encounter on that date, isn't going the way the porn started out, he's already in his head. Am I not good enough? Does she not like me? Is my dick smaller than who she's used to? Who knows what's going through his head? And our minds, especially when it comes to sex, are so powerful that we need to try and shut our minds off, which is
Mm.
not easy, and just be in the moment and be able to let our bodies do the exploring and let our bodies do the experiencing. But that is so hard for people to
Well,
do.
exactly, and I think that's where one of the things that porn is taking away from youth. When I was growing up, and there was porn not the way it is today. Yeah, there were Playboy magazines, and when I was 20, to get a porn movie, it was, yeah, you really still had to go to Times Square and maybe see one, or go to the theater, and maybe a buddy, right? And I was going somewhere with that. Oh, for me, when I was dating somebody and I learning to get in bed with her and please her, and thankfully I had a father who taught me how to treat a woman, not necessarily step by step sexually, but he taught me how to treat a woman, and I watched him treat my mother with respect. I would learn how to make
Please,
sure that the
woman.
woman is pleased, blah, blah, blah. I'm getting the point is that when I was younger, I didn't have porn to do that with. Today, the guys are looking at it and they think that's, the guy knocks on the door, comes in, drops his pants, and everything starts happening. The woman needs 20 minutes to get warmed up, and the man needs to start that sexual flirtation during the daytime. There's all sorts of ways, but texting
Yeah.
in the morning,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So back to quoting Emily Nagoski, "Don't yuck someone's yum." She refers to desire in her book "Come as You Are," responsive desire and spontaneous desire. I'm not going to categorize all male, all female in one category versus another, but a lot of men can work with spontaneous desire. They can be ready when they're ready. It doesn't matter if it's a Tuesday, if it's a Saturday, if it's the morning, if it's the night. A woman is more responsive to desire. She needs that buildup. And you named it perfectly. Another Dr. Emily that I love is Dr. Emily Morse. And she says foreplay begins the minute you wake up. So it's not even the afternoon, it's the morning. The morning you wake up for potential intimacy that day, we don't know what's going to happen. You start with those loving, kind gestures, whether that's any of the love languages, whether that's a verbal affirmation, whether that is an act of service, whether that is a gentle physical touch. You're showing your partner that you care about them, they mean something to you, they're safe with you, you desire them, not at 10:15 at night when you're going to bed. Hey, want to fuck? Now, that could turn some people on. Don't get me wrong. Excuse my language. Most people need more than that. And yes, women really aren't that difficult to please, but the emotional part needs to be there for a lot of women, and men don't think about that.
And I've learned that listen, sometimes sit down and listen. How was your day? And just let her talk. And yeah, I've learned so much over the years. I wish just some of the younger men knew what it's a shame. What's the expression that the youth is wasted? The knowledge is wasted on the.
Yes, yes. But you know what? I say in sessions all the time, we make life, sex or otherwise, we make life so much more complicated than it needs to
We do,
be. I'll be
we
in a
do.
session with a couple in front of me, and he or she, doesn't matter whom, I don't know how to, find out if my partner wants blah, blah, blah. And I'll look at them and I'll be like, ask.
Yes, yeah,
They're right there.
yeah.
We do that throughout the day in other ways. What would you like for dinner? Would you like to go with me to take the dog on a walk? I'm going to the grocery store. Is there something I can get you? Typically, hopefully, we have good communication in our relationships because that's critical for good sex. We ask so we don't have to question it. We don't have to assume. Ask what they like. Have those conversations around intimacy. And again, most couples are not talking about sex.
No.
And the people who are talking about sex, they're not talking about it with their partners. They're talking about it with their hairdresser, with their therapist, with their
Yep.
girlfriends at happy hour, but they're not sitting down and having those conversations with the person or people that they are engaging in sex with.
I used to have briefly when there was a relationship that I had within the last 10 years that the sex was I thought was good, but I could tell that it wasn't something about it was she wasn't enjoying it fully. So one day I just asked her and she said, "You're just not hitting the spot with your tongue." And I said, "Wow, okay, because you had an orgasm, but yeah, but it took me 20." Long story short is she actually taught me how to do it. She said, "This, if you want to know." So she took her fingers out and said, "This is my vulva," for the people who's looking. And so this is the clit, and this is what you do. And I felt like I was back in high school, but the communication that we had made it so much better. So the next time I had an idea what I was doing, because every
You
woman's
had a
vagina is
roadmap.
different. I had
You
a
had a
roadmap.
roadmap.
Yeah.
There's a great book out there from Ian Kerner called She Comes First, and it's
I know it.
all about oral sex.
Hmm.
He wrote another one. He comes second, all about oral sex on a male. But that's just it. If we are not comfortable communicating with our partner, they're not going to know.
No.
We don't know what we don't know. And before we can even communicate with our partner, we need to know what we want.
Right. Oh,
Back to
absolutely.
shame, a lot of people, women especially, have a very hard time asking for what they want.
Mm, I agree. I'm not going to get into it now, but I had an issue with something and with every woman. And one day I finally opened up to this one particular woman and I told her what the issue was. It was, I'll tell you later. And um, once she knew what it was, oh my God, it was like a burden off my shoulders. And she pushed me back one night and said, lie back and relax. You're going to enjoy this. And it was only because I communicated. It was just a
You are
matter of communication.
vulnerable.
I was
You are
holding this
vulnerable.
back. Yeah. Yes.
You are vulnerable and you trusted something about her. You trusted. Now, could she have made fun of you? Could she have left you? Could
Yep.
she have?
Yep.
Sure, everything's a risk. The moment we open up our mouth, whatever we're going to say, there is a risk. But you obviously trusted her enough to have that conversation. The other thing I talk a lot about in sex therapy is lack of education. And when I say lack of education, you could be my client and have a Harvard degree. I am not referring to education academically. I am referring to sex education. I wish more women understood what reasons may be a man may have a hard time keeping an erection. I wish more men understood the reason why, or men and women, again, whatever type of relationship you're in, why some women have only faked orgasms and never had one because they, you know, want to get it over with, want to please their partner. I wish there was more education around all of these normal things because we take it so personal. It must be me. They're not attracted to me. They're not having a good time. Yeah, could that be true? Sure. But chances are that's not it. Let's have a conversation about it.
I had absolutely, and this woman you asked, I was vulnerable and I felt comfortable. She was in the medical field, and not a doctor, not a nurse, but something along the lines
She
where she helped.
profession.
Yeah, and so I felt that if I told her what was bothering me, she would understand it because she hears it all day long. Well, I shouldn't say she hears it all day long, but that's her job, and blah blah blah, and it worked. So it made me feel comfortable
Yeah,
was because of her profession. I just wanted to bring up something that you just mentioned. Um, oh gosh, it just went out of my
fake
head.
orgasms.
Yes. So thank you. I
It's
saw
usually a hot
again
topic. That's why I'm like, maybe that's what he was referring to.
On Reddit again, there was this whole thing about men can tell when a woman is faking an orgasm. You say no?
Nope. And I know for a fact men can't because I've done it on purpose and men don't know. And I'm sure most women would say that. And I'm putting that out there to the world, whoever watches this. Right or wrong, sorry, it was a research study for myself. I was with someone who had earlier said in the date, I know no one has, he claimed no woman has ever faked one with me. I'm like, that's not true. And he's like, no, it's true. Like, I would know the difference. Fast forward, we were, in a moment and I faked it and he assumed it was real. So am I proud of that moment? No. But at the
No.
same time, there, there is, there's a way. I mean, women do it all the time and men
Yeah.
don't know.
But let me ask you this. That was a great research study that you did. But did you do it with just one guy? Because you really, in my world, I have seen women fake it, and I stopped and said, "If you're gonna fake it, I'm not gonna do this." And so
And
I
never
have
the other times that it has happened in the course of my life, I've never had a man question it. In that particular case, the only reason I did it was because he was so sure of himself. And again, I didn't want to prove him wrong. And I never
right.
said to him later, it was one date, we didn't see each other again. I didn't want to make him feel
Yeah.
bad. That's not what it was about. I just wanted to see, like, would he know?
Mm.
And there are physical responses, that a man, I don't know what it feels like to be a man. I'm not a man, but there are some physical responses where they can see the heart rate going up. They can feel the tightening, depending on also what is going on to have the orgasm, whether that's penetration, that's oral, who knows. But unfortunately, so many women fake it because either A, they can't have one in the first place, which is most likely the
That's a
number one
different story,
reason.
but okay.
They also wanna get it over with,
That's what I was getting to. Yeah.
because some men will wait for the woman to have one before he has one, and she just wants to get it over with. A lot of times, they don't wanna hurt the man's feelings and
Right.
not have and they don't want him to feel like he's not pleasing her because let's be real, a woman can be pleased, a man can be pleased and not have an orgasm. There's a difference between.
Yeah.
So I want more people to understand that as
Yeah.
well.
Two people
Sex does
can.
not always lead to an orgasm, and that's
Thank you.
okay.
Two people can go to bed and have a wonderful intimate experience for an hour, and it could be just a sensual thing, whether orgasm or not. I've done it. I've done it where it was mind blowing, was even better than sex, and
Even go one step further and say a couple can keep their clothes on
mm,
and have a
okay,
conversation that is
I've done it.
incredibly vulnerable and intimate. And that conversation can have those two people feel so much closer to one another than any penetrative sex with an orgasm would have done. But again, we are so quick when we think of sex, we only think of intercourse. And when we think of sex, we think of the orgasm as the end all be all.
Yep,
And so much of
the
my,
grand finale. Yeah,
exactly. And so many of my conversations with clients, male, female, however you identify as gender, whatever type of sex you're having or not having, an orgasm's great. Don't get me wrong. That does not need to be, it's only going to be a successful, enjoyable
I
experience
agree,
worth my
100%.
time
Yeah.
if this and this and this and this happen.
But and I want to switch gears and get into the dating side.
Okay.
But I personally would never, and I have because I in my younger years I wasn't experienced, but now as you get older and men who were brought up like me learn to respect women, I would never go through with sex with a woman who I knew was not enjoying it. I would just stop it right there. But as you said before, most men are just going to go through it because they're already hard, they're already in her, and he's 30 seconds from coming. I can actually pull out and say, I'm just not doing this because you're clearly
In men's defense, if the woman is showing whether it's truthful or not, if the woman is showing in the moment that she's into it, he may not know the difference. If
okay.
it's the, if it's
There,
the husband who's like, I want to have sex tonight, and the wife's like, okay, fine, just be quick about it, and they're laying there like a dead fish, as they say, I have a hard time, maybe as a female,
me too.
wrapping my head around that husband would still choose to have sex with their
Me
wife.
too.
Now,
Me too.
it is
Absolutely.
consensual because she is allowing him to do it, but she is not an active participant.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'm a
She's
little
doing her
wifely
spousal
duties.
duties
Well,
and
and at that point, this is a little
yeah.
direct. She's a wormhole. That is what she is in those moments.
Yes, of course. I know. And a lot of people would argue that she's doing her duties to keep the man from straying but that couple needs to come to you and work that out. So she needed to be warmed up 8 hours earlier. You
Or
know?
let's be honest, even if he was the most romantic, attentive, loving partner that day, it still doesn't guarantee she wants to have sex with him at the end of the night. So it's important to understand sex is never guaranteed.
Correct.
And do both people need to be 100% enthusiastic? No, but both people need to be wanting it for it to happen. And again, that might be at varying degrees. Mismatched desire is a thing in most relationships, but there's a difference between a mismatched desire like this and a mismatched desire like this.
Yeah.
This
And
is
and
harder to work with.
and I've seen on both sides, sometimes on TV, not on porn, sometimes on TV, sometimes in real life, sometimes on social media, where a woman will just say, I'm going to give oral sex, a blowjob to my husband tonight because I want to, but she doesn't want anything. But she does it with pleasure and with enthusiasm because he had a long day. Let's say I don't know, he's a blue collar worker and he works his butt off and he comes home and I've seen that. And then I've also seen the reverse where the husband will come home and draw a bath for the wife and give her a massage. So I would like to get into we're coming up on like maybe 10, 15 minutes left. I'd like to talk about your dating life. Sweet.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I am both a sex therapist and a single woman. So, I'm in
What
a
do
new
you
relationship. I'm in a new relationship right now, but I've done a lot of dating over the 9+ years I've not been, in my marriage. And it's been a journey. And I honestly think part of dating as a single woman, both in my late 30s and into my 40s over the years, helped me realize I want to be a sex therapist because I've seen what it's like to date
Yeah.
as a single mother, as a woman in her 40s, different than dating in your 20s.
What when you say you're in a new relationship, can you define? Are we talking 3 months, 6 months, 1 year,
About 3 months.
3 months? Okay. Yeah, that's new. Okay.
Yeah, it's very new. So,
How did how
yet
how
good.
did you meet? You don't have to give specifics and details, but was it a dating
Only
app?
ever met the various men I've dated over the years. I've only ever met them on apps
No kidding.
because I work from home. I have a home office. I'm not out and about as often as other people may be. Where the places are that I go are kid related. So it's my daughter's dance studio, it's my son's basketball practices. I'm not going to date a dad in
No.
those small circles. Don't get me wrong, I love going out, for a night with my girlfriends, but I'm not the type of person that's going to be seeking, a date
Mis
for the night when
Mr.
I'm going
Goodbar.
out
Yeah.
hitting the bars. So, I've also found I've had good experiences with the apps. I know that they're overwhelming for a lot of people, and don't get me wrong, they are overwhelming. I've had a great experience with it because it's, in my opinion, more in our control of who we choose to speak to, how often we're going to engage with them, um, the pace at which you go from talking on the app to sharing phone numbers. I mean, it's different, obviously, for everybody. But I've had a good experience with it. I think one, because I'm more open minded than maybe a lot of women are in dating. And I don't take myself too seriously either.
Oh God, I have so many questions.
We might have to do an additional podcast another time just on this.
We might. Let's say I almost want you to tell me which dating app it was, and if you're comfortable, do that. But what was your secret? Because I listen to a lot of podcasts. So I listened to Damona Hoffman on the way home tonight. You may or may not know her.
I'm not sure who that is.
Damona Hoffman, look her up.
Okay.
She's huge in the dating podcast, and she writes for the LA Times. Um, and she did a whole thing tonight on dating apps and
Yeah.
swiping. And uh, so I'm just curious, so you when you're swiping looking for a male, first of all, do you swipe or do you sit back and wait for them to come to you?
So, to answer your question about what apps have I been on, it's easier to tell you the apps I have not been on because it's funny, both as a sex therapist and also as a single woman dating, not currently. Um, I've tried almost all of them, really,
Yeah,
because
me
I
too.
want to see how different they are. I like these aspects of Bumble. I like these aspects of Hinge. I don't like this aspect of Tinder, whatever the case is. I've met men from all different apps. I mean, some are definitely better than others, in my opinion. I mean, we have the top three: Bumble, Hinge, and Tinder, for a reason. Um, I have done both.
Wait,
I've
wait, wait, wait.
swiped on profiles and I've had people swipe on me that are brought to my attention that I hadn't seen their profile first. But I don't pay for the services. So I couldn't really speak as much to
Good.
if you pay for a membership, what you're going to get out of it versus if
Well,
you don't.
they make it easier for women not to pay, and they want the men to pay. Like Bumble is easier for that.
Fair, but what it is.
Now it's interesting you mentioned Bumble, Tinder, and Hinge, and you said those are like top 10. I know you're talking off the top of your head, but you left out eHarmony, which is one of the top ones, and you also left out Match, which is
Match.
one of the original ones. I'm not plugging these, and I'm not saying these are great. As a matter of fact, I do not like eHarmony whatsoever. But I've had a lot of success. It's funny, I've had more success on eHarmony than any other app, and yet I find it they allow people not to put who doesn't put pictures up? You have to put a picture up. But
Well, I guess, I mean, yes, that you would think would be a no-brainer. And then also Match has their other app called Stir, which is specifically for single parents. So not sure, if people know about that. But I don't know what the latest research is. But my guess is if you stopped someone between 20 and 40 and asked what the top three most common dating apps are, I think they would still say Tinder,
Bumble,
Bumble,
yeah,
and Hinge.
yeah, they
If
are
you ask maybe more the 45 to 65 population, I absolutely agree. Match is going to be on there. eHarmony maybe
harmony.
as well.
And then the higher you go, they're gonna say you're gonna get silver dating over
Yeah,
time.
you
Yeah,
know what? I love that. I mean, I love that The Bachelor has the Golden Bachelor now. Like, I love is love. I want people, if they want to date, to have sex, to be in love, to do what they want to do. And the dating apps allow us the opportunity to see a lot of people in a short period of time and make a decision. And I think as long as we can say we're pretty good with our intuition, I can count on one hand and probably not even need all five fingers bad first dates. And I'll be honest, I've gone on a lot of first dates over the past 9 years because I think I'm a pretty good judge of character and I take the dating process pretty seriously. I will not swipe right on a guy when I was swiping unless I've read their entire profile. I've looked at all of their pictures. I've checked the distance of where they live.
mm,
Like, I'm not going to just be like, oh, that's an attractive man, swipe right. And
very
meanwhile, I
good.
haven't read his profile. I haven't looked at the other
You know
pictures.
nothing about them. Yeah.
And then just hope he matches with me. And I've heard people say that, like, well, I just swipe right. And then once I get a match, then I'll read their profile. I'm not going to say do the work. I rather put the effort in up front. So then if we do match, at least I know I'm interested in this person.
And that's happened to me. I have mindlessly sometimes watching TV going, I'm bored of the TV show, or maybe there's a commercial, whatever. So I'll pick up the phone and I'll start swiping pretty. And then next morning I get, oh, I got a match. And there is this beautiful woman 2 states away. And it's like, but we matched because I swiped on her last night because I didn't bother to read her bio.
Well,
Her,
first of all, you can change your settings.
I know
Doesn't
that.
mean doesn't mean she wasn't visiting your town and that's why it came up.
Well,
Or if she is paying for her membership and she wants to see every potential option, she's going to see someone even if they live 30 states away.
but I saw her, and it probably said at the bottom Pennsylvania or Connecticut, and I live in New York, and I actually live in a specific section of New York where I do not want to be outside of that section. She lived like it was like would have taken me a half a day just to go whatever. The point is, I'm trying to agree with you. You have to read the bio. You got to read it because at the bottom or the top, wherever her name, wherever her location and her distance, I have my own rule: 15 miles radius. I don't want to go outside that.
And when I first dated, when I was first single after my marriage years ago, I just dated to date. I just wanted to meet different people, have some experiences.
Well, that's
You
different.
could have
Yeah,
lived 5 minutes away. You could have been an hour drive. I just wanted
that's
to meet
different.
people.
Yeah.
Now it matters more.
Now,
But
yeah,
also, you may find someone who doesn't want to date in their city. They only want to see the person once or twice a month. And so it works better that they don't live close by. So there's not that pressure just because we can, we're going to meet for dinner this week. So
right,
what it comes down to, again, all of this is life in general. But what it comes down to also in dating is what am I looking for? And I need to be honest with myself first, what I am looking for, what I'm looking for in a partner, what I'm looking for in a relationship, what I know I can bring to the relationship. So then when it's time to match with someone and hopefully make it to a first date, which leads to a second date, etc., I'm in the right
right.
relationship. And a lot of
I
people don't do that. They don't
I
ask the questions
I
and
agree
they
with you
waste
because there's
time.
a lot of people looking for hookups. There's a lot of people looking for maybe just friendships first, and
And there's
or
nothing wrong with any of that.
none of it.
Just
No, 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 no. I'm
yeah,
agreeing, but if you're swiping in the beginning just for casual sex or just hookups or if you wanting to, like you said, get out of town for a while or I don't think you said that, but you were talking about another city, but But when you're ready to settle down, I think that's when you really got to tighten up your filters. I got one more topic I want to bring up, and then we gotta
yeah,
wrap it up.
yeah.
Um, because I want your opinion on it. Is what are your thoughts on what's really becoming a hot topic today? Is um, polyamory?
Now, are you speaking specifically to polyamory or are you speaking to the concept of open relationships in general?
Okay, let me maybe re-clarify that. Polyamory, not I mean ethical non-monogamy.
Okay. So, what you're referring to, ethical non monogamy, also called consensual non monogamy,
Correct.
is any form of an open relationship, meaning any form of a relationship that is not two people, monogamous, exclusive. Because polyamory is a specific form under the umbrella of ethical non monogamy. Polyamory is multiple relationships that
Okay.
include love and emotional
Yes, I
connection.
realize there's a distinction.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
again, back to what I said before, it's so important that we define the thing first. Open relationships are still not the majority. They're never going to be the majority, but they are becoming more common. They
Mhm.
are becoming something that more people are willing to talk about and try. I have had couples come to me and ask if they should open their relationships, and some it makes sense, other times it does not. I've had couples come to me who have been open and something has happened and now one partner wants to go back to monogamy, the other one does not. So that could even be another podcast in and of itself. And back to the dating apps, a lot of people are putting that on their profile. They are putting the letters E
Mhm.
and M, which some people are like, I got to look that up, I don't know what that means. But what we don't know is that honest? Are they actually in a consensual open relationship and their partner knows they're on the apps? Just
Or
because
they're
it says
cheating.
my wife knows I'm on here doesn't mean their wife knows they're on there. Um, but I'll be honest, some people on the dating apps would be great with that. They don't mind if the person's married. They don't mind if the person's dating five other people.
I think unless Bumble puts a different section, I think there are apps for that type of lifestyle, and they should, in
Field
my
is
opinion.
probably the biggest dating app for sex specific interests. So, yes, there are. And again, I'm not against anyone who's in an open relationship.
Once again, what you do over there,
But be
I keep
honest.
pointing over there as my bedroom. What you
Yeah,
do,
be honest.
it's your business, your business. So, it's not my thing, but and that's what brought this podcast on 3 years ago, because the woman that I was in
Yeah.
decided to make it non-monogamy, but just forgot to inform me about it. So it turned
Well,
out
and ethical in ENM is the key word,
is the
and
key, right?
consensual in CNM is the key word. If you are not including your partner in that conversation before it happens and getting their 100% okay on it, it is not ethical and it is not consensual. That means it is infidelity. So there's a lot of different people want to try and find the gray area there. I'm like, there's no gray. It's black
No,
and white.
it's
You
black and white.
either understand this is the relationship you're in, or you haven't had the conversation. Therefore, it's not
No.
what relationship you think you're in because your partner's not aware
And
of it.
and and
So,
and we got to say goodbye. But I personally think that belongs, not belongs. I shouldn't say belongs. I think you're going to see that in the more the younger generation, the 20s and
a lot of
30s.
the younger generation is definitely more sexually fluid. Although I live in San Diego, North County, San Diego, there's a large population in the
Oh,
suburban life up here of people who are in open marriages in
yeah,
their
you're in
40s.
California. That's a whole different ball game over there.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
whole thing. Yeah,
So
no, that's
you're gonna see more of it. But again, just to kind of wrap this up, I just want people to be comfortable with whatever level of
agreed.
sexuality they want to have and feel comfortable having those conversations first with themselves and then with their partner.
Absolutely agree. 100%. Um, I am closing season 4, but you brought up the idea, maybe we should talk again. I like that idea. So, I'm gonna put you we'll talk
Yeah.
about it afterwards. So,
Yeah, sure.
Kerry, tell the audience where we can find you online, either just your website and your practice or any of your social media, and we'll say
Yeah,
goodbye.
my website's the best contact. It's my name, so it's Keri Green, LMFT.com. Hopefully you can go in your show notes and that's
It
where you'll
will.
find everything you need to know about me.
Alright, fantastic.
Thank you.
What a really nice conversation tonight. Thank you so much, Kerry, for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay.